Welcome to your Algebra 2 lesson 1.3 over solving linear equations. So obviously the objective for today is that you will solve linear equations. So let's jump right in with 4/5 x plus 8 equals 20. Now you always want to rewrite the original equation, and so do that. And then we want to solve for x. So we want to move anything that we can. We want to over to the other side. We want to get the x term by itself on one side of the equation and just the plain numbers on the other side of the equation. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. So we get 4/5 x equals 12. So x is being multiplied by 4/5. Anytime we get down to x being multiplied by a coefficient, we divide by that coefficient. Dividing by 4/5 is the exact same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal. So we're going to multiply each side by 5/4. So obviously on the left-hand side, 5/4 times 4/5 will cancel. On the right-hand side, we get 5/4 times 12. 5 times 12 is equal to 60 divided by 4 gives us 15. And so our answer is x equals 15. Now if you want to check your answer, you would take the x equals 15 and you would plug it back in wherever it says x, and you would double check that you get a true statement. Now let's try a word problem. During one shift, a waiter earns wages of $30 and gets an additional 15% in tips on customer food bills. So let's think about this. So it's saying one shift, the waiter gets $30 guaranteed. And then on top of that, gets 15% in tips on the food bills. The waiter earns $105. So we know how much the waiter gets all together with the $30 and the 15% in tips. What is the total of the customer's food bills? Okay, so we're going to write a verbal model and then write an equation, and it's really important that you write 15% as a decimal. Remember, that means 0.15. Okay, so the total income for the day in dollars, how much the waiter earns, is going to equal the wages, the fixed amount that the waiter earns no matter what else happens, plus the percent for tips, times the total amount of the food bills, the total amount that all his customers spent on food. So algebraically, we have 105 equals $30, the $30 he gets no matter what, plus 15%, so 0.15, times x, what we're looking for, the total amount of the customer's food bills. All right, so here's our equation. Now again, we want to get to the x. So we want to subtract anything that's not an x term over to the other side. So we're going to subtract 30 from each side, and we get 75 equals 0.15x. So what this is actually saying is that he earned $75 in tips. So what was the amount of food bills that gave him the $75 in tips? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by that coefficient of 0.15. And that's going to give us 500 because 75 divided by 0.15 is 500. So the total of the customer's food bills is $500. All right, now let's just go back to a regular equation, but this time we're going to have x's on both sides of the equation, and we're going to have to use our good friend, the distributive property. So on here we're solving, and let's go ahead and recopy the original equation. 3 times the quantity 5x minus 8 equals negative 2 times the quantity negative x plus 7 minus 12x. Okay, now before we start trying to move where we get x's on one side and plain numbers on the other, remember you have to simplify each side. So over here we need to distribute the 3, and then on the right hand side we're going to need to distribute the negative 2 across the negative x plus 7, everything in that set of parentheses. So we're going to get 15x minus 24 equals negative 2 times negative x is just 2x. Negative 2 times 7 gives us minus 14, and then we just write down the minus 12x since it was not multiplied by anything. Now on the right hand side we need to combine like terms. We need to do 2x minus 12x is negative 10x. So the left hand side stays the same. All right, now we're ready to start moving. Let's go ahead and get our x's on the left-hand side by adding 10x to each side. So 15x plus 10x will give us 25x, and then we still have our minus 24 equals negative 14. And now we just need to get our plain numbers on the other side. So we're going to add 24 to both sides. And we get 25x equals 10 because negative 14 plus 24 is 10. Okay, x is being multiplied by 25, so we divide both sides by 25, which will give us 10 25ths. And 10 25ths reduces down to be 2/5 because we can reduce by 5 on top and bottom. The solution is 2/5. All right, now we're going to solve another word problem. Life is full of word problems, so we're going to get lots of practice of them here in Algebra 2. It takes you 8 minutes to wash a car, so 8 minutes you get the job done. And it takes a friend 6 minutes to wash a car. Okay, so your friend takes 6 minutes to get the same job done. How long does it take the two of you to wash 7 cars if you work together? So there's 7 jobs to be done, 7 cars to be washed, and y'all are going to work together, and the question is, how long is that going to take? All right, here's how you approach a problem like this. You're going to write a verbal model and then write each equation. And what you're going to do, and this may be surprising, is you're going to write your rate of car washing and your friend's rate of car washing. So you wash 1 car every 8 minutes. That's the rate. That's the number of cars per minute. You get 1/8 of a car washed in a minute times t minutes, the total amount of time y'all are going to work together. Okay, plus your friend's rate, which is 1 car for every 6 minutes. So your friend gets 1/6 of a car washed every minute. And then times t minutes, however long y'all are going to wash together, and that's going to equal the total of 7 cars. If you only needed to wash 3 cars together, it would equal 3. If you both were going to wash a car together, it would equal 1. Okay, so always your equal is going to be the number of jobs to be done. So whether we're talking about lawns to be mowed, rooms to be painted, however many of those jobs need to get done, that's going to be the total for your equation. Okay, so we're going to solve the equation for t. So let's write it out again. We've got 1/8 t plus 1/6 t equals 7. Now, to add those two fractions together, we could get a common denominator. But you know what I've found is nobody really likes fractions a whole lot, so let's get rid of them. We can't always do this. If we're simplifying an expression, we're usually pretty much out of luck. But because we have an equation, we can do whatever we want to one side pretty much as long as we do it to the other side. So let's multiply both sides by what would be the common denominator. A common denominator for 8 and 6 would be 24, because we can do 8 times 3 to get 24, 6 times 4 to get 24. But instead of rewriting our fractions, let's multiply both sides by 24. Okay, so we're going to have 24 times the quantity 1/8 t plus 1/6 t equals 24 times 7. So we need to distribute that 24. 24 times 1/8 is 3, so 3t, plus, now I'm going to distribute the 24 to the 1/6. 24 times 1/6 is 4, so I've got 3t plus 4t equals 24 times 7 is 168. So let's add the 3t and the 4t together to get 7t. Equals 168. Now, my left-hand side simplified, my right-hand side simplified. I don't even need to move anything. All I need to do is divide both sides by 7, and we get 24. And so it'll take 24 minutes to wash 7 cars if you work together. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good deal there. Okay, guys, that's it for examples.